What's up everyone? Today's video I'm going to be installing these area vents. They were sent to me to do some videos for you guys to show you how to install them in hardwood flooring, tile, and drywall. So I got 3 of them to show you here. So if you're interested in this video, let's get started. But first, let's get a closer look at the area vent. So now this is the drop-in insert for the flooring. You have a section that pops out, and this is the insert for the flooring to go into. Now in my situation, my flooring is very thin, so I'm gonna have to build up the bottom of the tray so the flooring sits flush. Same with the tile. And for your dampening are these flaps here. You just open them, close them however you feel. And there's little tabs here where the tabs on the back here click into, and that's basically it. So I'm gonna show you the process how I installed these in hardwood flooring that I had laid down years ago, and I ended up using scraps for this insert. Alrighty, first step here is to remove your old grill. Once you have that out of the way, you want to test fit your vent into the floor, and you may have to do some minor adjustments here or there. So once you know it's all good and it fits, just test the functionality of it all, and then you can go to the next step. When you're doing this in your house, you may have issues trying to get this into the ductwork. And what you got to do, if it doesn't fit, you got to see where it's rubbing or hitting, and then you want to go into the actual ductwork and you want to see if there's any screws in the way or the metal's bent inwards, and just pry it back. Some of them are harder to do than others, but in my case, it went pretty smooth. Do a little coffee break here. If you like this video, please hit that subscribe and stay tuned for more. We've had this flooring down for a couple years now, but I had some scraps in the basement that I was able to match up with what I had here. First step is you want to get your tray in place. Once that's in place, you want to click it in, and then you want to hold your piece up again, making sure your grains line up. Next step is I'm going to use a pencil here, and I'm going to mark right where the tray and the flooring need to be cut, and make sure that I have that nice straight one all the way through. And then also too, I'm going to make sure I mark the shorter end here, and I'm going to take those measurements right to the saw once these are all marked. And be sure to mark the side that you want to get rid of. That way when cutting it, you know which side the blade's supposed to be on. Now with the saw, we're going to make our first cut. So I want to just drop the saw in here, but I'm going to slowly work my way to the line because we're dealing with such a precise cut. So now what you want to do is you want to keep continually checking until it fits perfectly, like I did here. Now I'm going to cut the long way. Now this is a tricky cut the way I'm doing it here, but I've been doing it for so many years that this is comfortable for me. You can use a table saw for this part. So once you have the long part cut, all you got to do is hold your tray up, grab your pencil, and then you want to mark the other long side of the tray. Now same technique as the first cut, I'm going to slowly cut down up until my line, because this is going to be the precise cut you need here to get a good finish. Now just checking your tray, making sure it fits, and it's good to go for this piece right here. Now that I've cut my floor piece, as you can see, this thickness is not the right thickness here. It's a little shallow, so I ended up cutting little filler strips here to put these in first, and then the flooring piece on top. And when you come look at it here, it's nice and flush. So this piece is pretty good. Now I'm just going to screw in the back here and screw it all together and glue it as well. Now I'm going to be using these sheet metal screws to screw the first layer of plywood in through the back of the tray right with these holes. So I'm just going to stick my plywood in here, then I'm going to take my drill and screw these in. As you can see, there's no screws poking through the top face of this. So now next step is I'm just going to stick my wood in there and just to make sure that it's got a nice snug fit and it's pretty flush. Then using wood glue, I spread the wood glue on the black plywood here before I put my flooring in and make sure it's flat. And then use clamps to clamp it in. Next step is I want to screw my actual area vent into the ducting area. Now I use the Drywall flexible drill attachment to get the screws into the tight corners inside here. There are many ways to do it, but this is the way I did it here for this video. Be sure to screw in all 4 corners to make sure it's nice and solid before you go to click in the middle one. Once that's done, then you can actually go in and click it in, and then you're done for this part of the video. Next, I'm going to show you how to do it in tile. The steps at the beginning are the exact same, except for the part where you cut the tile. Now I used my neighbor's wet saw to cut this tile down to size. Now on the insert, I did the same thing. I used plywood on the backside, but then I used 100% silicone to glue the tile down flush. Now I gave a good heavy bead there so that when I go put my tile in place that I can get it leveled nice and flush. Wait till it dries, then once it's all dry you'll have a nice solid tile, and then you can go ahead and click it back in place, and then you're done. Now I got one more here to show you. This one's the drywall one. So I took my old grill off, cleaned it all up, installed the area vent in place to make sure I had enough clearance for my mud, and then I continued to mud it. So I put mud in first, just so it'll ooze into the gap between the drywall and the actual area vent, and then I taped it all in place. Scraping the tape off all the way around, made sure I taped all the edges so there's no cracking happen, and then I took my 10-inch trowel and then I troweled the mud all the way around. Now this is the first coat, this is the filler coat, and I did second coat and third coat all the way around and made sure it was all nice and flat.
Alright, so I've done third coat around the whole patch here.
And as you can see, it's relatively flat and smooth.
Now I'm going to show you a little technique with a sponge on how we can wet sand this down to reduce the dust. Now wet sanding doesn't work in every situation with a sponge, but I'm going to explain that in a little more detail in a bit. But first off, I'm going to show you what I'm going to do here. Once you get your sponge damp, you want to squeeze out all the water, and then all you got to do is circular motions. You want to smooth out any thin lines or little defects in your mud. And as you can see on there, very little on there.
Alright, now that we're waiting for that to dry, I'm just going to explain to you about sponge sand. So I usually call it wet sanding. So basically you take a sponge, you soak it in water, you drain it out all the way so it's just damp, and you just do circular motions. Now this only works if your drywall is nice and flat, and very minimal sanding is needed for small patch. If there's any big ridges or high points, this is no good, because when the sponge rides over those high points, you're not going to knock those high points down. This will just ride it and smooth out that high point, so you won't get a flat ceiling, so you'll have to sand that there. So in my case, my drywall was nice and flat, so I'm able to use this to create less dust in the basement where I'm working. Now I'm not going to paint this right now because I have some other projects that I have to do the same paint on, so I'll wait till then. Well everyone, that's it for this video. I hope you liked the installation process, and I hope it was informative enough for you to be able to tackle this on your home. Now if you like this video, please hit that subscribe and check out these two videos here for more like this, and I'll see you on the next one.